Yes, yes, yes. Windy, 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 windy. All right, we are live on YouTube, and I hope you can hear me because it is super windy today. Like I've said in the past, if it wasn't for this funny-looking furry ball on my face here, you would not be able to hear me at all right now. I mean, I always like to do a little test here to show you folks the difference, right? So if I were to take this thing off, give me a second here. Okay. Now, I'm walking and you can probably hear a ton of wind, right? You hear how it sounds right now? Let's put the windsock back on. Ah, whoops. I rotated my phone. I hope I didn't go off the air for a second. Big difference, huh? How are you all doing today? Welcome to another live stream here on the Coach Eli, Elias Melas channel. Oops. Let me tuck this other wire here so it's not making that tapping noise, annoying tapping noise. I try to make these streams as pleasant as possible for you folks, audio and video. Even in, you know, even out on the field, I mean, there's wind and lots of other things that can create distracting audio. I'm going to go the other way because there are some people coming, and that is a narrow part of the path. So let me just go another route here. Hope you've all had a great weekend so far. It's been relaxing for me. I've been doing my walks every day. Been walking around 4 miles, even sometimes a little more than 4 miles each and every day. And I feel good. And while many people over the last couple of years during the pandemic, I mean, it's still around, but I think we're finally about to move past the pandemic at some point this year. All I've heard over the last couple of years from men and women is that they've put on what they like to call now, what they'll dub pandemic weight. And quite frankly, that's a crock of shit, and you know it. Oh yeah, I gained weight during the pandemic because there wasn't anything to do. Really? You couldn't come out on the trails and take a 2, 3, or 4 mile walk each day? If I didn't do these walks like I do them or get my exercise, I would be at least 20, 30 pounds heavier right now, and I would feel like shit. This is something that I always try to preach to people. Think ahead. Be proactive. Don't wait until it's too late. If you know what can happen to you regarding certain aspects of your life, unless you do certain other things, why wouldn't you take preventative measures? Why wouldn't you? But yeah, all I've heard, I'd say probably in the last 6 to 8 months, right? And even before I started dating the wonderful lady I've been dating now for 5 months, we had a great conversation last night. Good day to you, ma'am. I know you're back at work today. And she texted me, made me aware that she's feeling better. Her voice is still a little scruffy, but that happens when you get a cold sometimes, right? But before I met her, started dating her, and I was talking with other women through these apps, a lot of women would say, well, my pictures are, within the last year or so, but in the last 3 months, I've gained some pandemic weight. Oh, You've gained pandemic weight. That's a new trend now, huh? Or is that the latest excuse, right? And quite frankly, I'm not trying to criticize anybody for their weight or anything, but why make excuses, right? Why make excuses? There is no excuse for you to not take care of yourself. You either choose to do it or you don't, right? And what's using the excuse, I gained pandemic weight, going to do? Am I supposed to feel sorry for you? Right? Now, no disrespect. I'm not a picky person, right? And looks aren't everything, but, you know, I mean, I did hear the pandemic weight thing a lot more from women than men. Because men, like, see, when men gain weight, they really don't complain about it, right? Yeah, it does bother them deep within sometimes. But, like, we don't complain about it or try to make excuses about it. If anything, what men will say, oh, shit, I'm getting fat. I'm fat. Oh, fuck it, you know. I'm just going to enjoy life, and I'll figure it out later on down the road. With women, more so with women, they try to justify it, right? It's funny how this is the funny thing, right? You know how, I always say that, and it's the truth, women are, emotional beings, and they, respond to everything emotionally first based on how they're feeling in the present moment. Then they may reason with logic later on, right? And men are more logical first, right? Or should be at least, right? Based on our biology. But when it's come to this pandemic and gaining weight, these women are trying to justify it with logic and reasoning, and it's rather comical. And most guys that don't understand female nature and how women's emotions work versus their logic and stuff like that, and guys' logic versus our emotions, right? Most guys would be just, okay, whatever, right? Most guys don't even realize that these women are just making excuses, right? That's because they're that thirsty. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. Okay, let's just hang out and hook up or whatever, right? The truth of the matter is, any woman that would mention that back in the days when I was single and looking, I basically stopped talking to her because it's an insecurity, and if she's not willing to put current pictures out there, or at least, send me current pictures, then, I don't know what I'm going to see when I show up, if I decide to show up, right? So I just thought that was rather comical. Anyway. Thank you to the 3 people that are here. 3 thumbs up. Please like, share, subscribe, bang the bell, select the notifications. Whether you're here live or on the replay, I would appreciate it. Before I get to, the topic here, and it's a great topic that, I want to try to help as many people understand, because I've lived this. It's regarding adapting to change. And how important adapting to change is, especially in this crazy modern world we all live in today, right? And if you don't adapt to change, the world's going to swallow you whole. And even though I've been quite experienced regarding the modern digital world as I grew up with it, there's one thing that I lacked experience in, I didn't even know about, and that was, creating content on the internet and dealing with trolls and haters. I had to learn that. I had to adapt to that change in the way people behave online compared to the way they behave offline. Like, it's a fairly new thing. that started happening like 10 to 15 years ago. Like when YouTube came out, and especially when YouTube started doing live streams, it's just an easy way for people to troll, right? So I had to learn to adapt to that, right? I'll share more about that in just a little bit. But yeah, I was going to talk about something else here before getting to the topic, and it kind of slipped my mind. It's another part of the San Francisco Bay Trail I walk on occasion. Like I told you folks, I'm going to be switching up the locations of the walks. There's typically a good amount of water here, but it's a little bit dry in certain parts where there's normally water. We haven't had rain in several weeks, so it's probably the reason why. Whew. And it looks like they've started to trim some of the trees. Like, see this tree right here? I think this was one that was hanging out on the trail. You see those branches right there? Those are cut with a saw. Because I think this was the tree that was hanging out on the trail here and hanging so low that there were times in the past where I would run into it. And you would see it on the camera. So they've come out here and they've done some great maintenance since I was out here last time. It's been several months since I've been out here, but I do love this part of the SF Bay Trail also. So, oh, I remember now what I was going to say. So, you know, I was thinking today. You know, what is my real purpose out here on YouTube? What am I focused on? What audience am I trying to attract? Right? You know, who am I trying to cater my message to and serve? Well, it's people that, you know, like motivational content. People that like positive, uplifting content. Okay? And it's a very, very difficult market to penetrate because the type of content I create is not necessarily entertaining type of content. It's not drama type of content. Now, there are times where my content does contain some drama or some entertainment. It just naturally happens, but I don't go out of my way to create drama or entertainment. Maybe some of the things I say and how straight up and, you know, straightforward and truthful I am and how I emphasize them, they can be funny, they can come off funny, right? But it's not my intention to come out here and entertain you. It's not my intention to be a comedian. It's not my intention to stir up the drama pot. Like, if you want any of that, there's plenty of that all over YouTube. Right? And while I know there are many people that do benefit and can benefit from my content, it's really hard to pull them away from drama and other forms of comedy or entertainment that they're seeking, right? Because the last thing that people really want to do on any given day is admit that they have flaws, admit that they need to work on themselves to better themselves. Nobody wants to admit that. Hey, I didn't want to admit that in the past. Everyone goes through that. So I get it. I totally understand. Totally understand. I love this part where it goes off to the dirt and then we go to the other side with the nice homes. I may have to stop when I get to the other side to use the restroom. So I may be going off the air Joe Shipley, good evening, Coach Eli. How you doing, Joe? Welcome to the show, bro. How's your weekend going? What's been going on in your neck of the woods? Let me ask you, Joe, while you're here, out of curiosity, what type of content do you consume on YouTube primarily? What is your favorite type of content? What type of thumbnail and genre of content or title would get you to stop everything and click on that thumbnail to view that video or live stream on your or within your home feed? I mean, of your YouTube app. Because I'm assuming you're using your phone. Most people use their phones to watch YouTube nowadays. It's much easier than, more convenient than using your laptop or desktop or, even putting it on your TV. Most people don't even know that, hey, you can watch YouTube on your TV as long as your TV is internet enabled, has the YouTube app on the TV, your mobile device, your tablet or your phone is hooked into the same, local network, your home internet network. And then all you do is you tell your, TV through your YouTube app to launch that video on the TV. And that's why I broadcast in such high quality, especially when I'm from the studio or my pre-recorded videos. My main studio streams are 1080p, 60 frames per second, and my pre-recorded videos are 4K at 60 frames per second. Now these mobile live streams are limited to 720p, 30 frames per second, because you're on the cell tower and it's just much easier to stream on mobile, at 720 than any of the higher qualities. It would take more bandwidth, more processing power, and it wouldn't work as well. Now, maybe down the road, when they further enhance the cell towers and phones become even better, we may get 1080p or 4K streaming from mobile, but I doubt that's going to happen for a while. It would suck up an enormous amount of bandwidth and take up even more space on YouTube servers. And by the way, folks, it's a little bit chilly today. It's about 55 degrees. That's what the outside temperature gauge said in my car right before I stepped out. But still a beautiful, brisk day for a walk. So, I cater my content to, I'm looking to target people that want to be inspired, that want to be motivated and uplifted, right? And it's just not the easiest thing, to attract. Not because people don't want it or don't need it, because their attention spans will always drop everything for more dramatic type of content or news stories, or some type of comedy or whatever, right? And I've actually started to more so realize that, even like watching the news, like on CNN or on Fox News or MSNBC or any one of those cable networks, right? If you folks haven't noticed, like, the way they present their material is all drama style. Like most news nowadays regarding things that happen is all about drama, right? And that's why a lot of people will say, some people say CNN is fake news and Fox News is fake news. I wouldn't necessarily say they're fake news. I would say that they present their stories, they present the news in a way that triggers an emotional response for you to drop everything to tune in. So they amplify the dramatic portions of those stories, right? Maybe they're kind of stretching the truth a little bit. I wouldn't say they're completely lying, but this is why people think that mainstream media is fake news. It's not necessarily fake news. It's just presented in a way now where it brings an element of drama to try to get the attention of a larger audience. Because now CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all these cable news networks, right, are competing with other YouTube channels that are doing the same thing, that have larger audiences. And an example, another one, is Joe Rogan, who's no longer on YouTube because of that exclusive deal on Spotify, but that's an example there, right? It's like these news networks are forced to bring in drama and dramatics just to compete. And see, I'm not even in competition with those, types of people or channels, right? Or cable stations that create that type of content, right? Or present that type of content, right? I'm not in direct competition with them. I don't want to be, right? But the truth about what's happening is that even if you folks really wanted to watch my content and you wanted positive reinforcement, right? If some breaking news happened, something crazy happened, and you got a notification on your phone, you would leave my stream or my content to go view that because of the, breaking news aspect or drama aspect or what's going on now, what's wrong now, right? There's always something going to be wrong. And if you learn to understand that the world's not a perfect place and there's always going to be something going on that's wrong or dramatic, and someone in some way, shape, or form is going to be out there trying to get your attention, to present you something that can suck you in long enough or suck you in indefinitely so they can make money off of you. That's what it all boils down to. Drama equals money, right? That's all it is. And most of these people that create this type of content don't care about you. All they care about is getting your attention and keeping your attention for as long as possible, right? Once you folks can realize that and understand that it's a waste of your time, right? It's a waste of your time where you could be focusing on more positive things and doing better things for yourself. Like I'd like taking a walk, right? Most people would rather sit on their ass at home and watch the dramatic news all day, or drama YouTube channels, or drama TikTok videos, or whatever, instead of coming out here on a nice trail like this, taking a nice walk, and feeling good, and staying healthy and fit, right? Babe, if you're watching, if my lady's watching, would you want to walk this trail with me sometime soon? Maybe when you come out here next week, I believe you may be coming out here. We can walk this trail. It's 4 miles in and out. You tell me, is that beautiful? Is that to your satisfaction? I've been to this part here before. I remember, closed to foot traffic. Now I can zoom in. I wouldn't go down there anyway. So Joe, I never heard, whoops. Sorry folks, I think I just went off the air for a second. Every time I zoom, sometimes the lock screen comes on. I'm sorry about that. I think I'm back. I never heard back from you, Joe, regarding, what type of content do you prefer to watch? What gets you to click on those thumbnails and keeps you there, right? And if you're gone, no big deal. It just proves my point. Something else pops up. Breaking news. Maybe CNN breaking news. Fox News breaking news. They're on YouTube too, right? Maybe one of the YouTube drama channels puts something in their title that is cringy and you want to drop everything and tune in. And that's the thing, folks. Folks, when you start to realize that the majority of content that you're watching, you're being emotionally sucked into without even realizing it. And it's not worthy of your time or energy, right? And all you're doing is making these people a ton of money and wasting your time and money. Especially if you're donating to them. And if you're not, most of these channels on YouTube are monetized. So they're getting monetized playbacks from you, right? That's all they're doing. Somebody's coming, so I'm going to wait here a second. It's beautiful. Look at that. Go ahead. I think the gentleman was waiting for me, so I'm waiting for him. So both yielded. He was being nice, and I just told him to go ahead. Because I've got the camera, I'm live, and I want to respect your privacy and respect your walk. So we're going to get to it here in just a second, folks. I'm almost on the other side here. Yeah, this is another one of my favorite walks. It's super, super windy today, I'll tell you that. But it does feel good. It's not overly chilly. It's not hot. This is like a good temperature. But I am layered up. I've got, 3 layers on. 2 shirts underneath my Columbia jacket, and then the Columbia jacket, the hat, the gloves. Speaking of which, I got to replace these gloves soon. There's another hole here. I've got backups. I'm just going to wear it down. I always keep backups. That's another thing, folks. If you're a YouTuber, right, and you have to understand that things wear down. Things wear down. Equipment wears down. Charging units wear down. Headset plugs and stuff wears down. You got to always have backups on hand. Because the last thing you want to do is, have malfunctioning equipment, and then you got to either go to the store if they even have it in stock or order it from Amazon, and then you're out of business for a couple of days, right? I think this person's coming this way. Nope, they're going the other way, so I'm clear. There's actually a single track part here, so there's not really enough room. Yeah. Well, at least they said on your right. Single track, you got people coming on bikes. They're not going to stop. It's all good. Someone's coming on the other side. I'm going to come and sit over here for a second and wait for them to pass. And then we'll get right to it. Yeah, this is what I see sitting here. Got some people coming on both sides. Give me a second, folks, and we'll get the show started. Got 9 people here, 5 thumbs up. Thank you so much for being here. I'll take this moment while I wait for the other couple on the other side to pass to say, if you're getting value out of this content here and you'd like to, further help support this channel and myself and my business and what I'm trying to accomplish, you can do a few things. You can donate to this channel via Super Chat at the bottom by, clicking that $sign and, selecting an amount that works for you. The greater the amount, the longer your Super Chat message will stay highlighted at the top. More people coming. If you don't want to send a message, you can send a super sticker without a message with an animated Giphy. I'm not a big fan of Giphies, but if you are, and you're donating to support the channel, hey, I'll make an exception for my hatred of Giphies. I'm not a big meme person or Giphy person. I'm really not. Because I think it's just a lazy way for people to say hi, right? Instead of typing it out, hello, how are you today? They'll just send an animated Giphy saying hi. But if you're paying money, I guess we'll make an exception for that, right? You can also donate via Cash App or PayPal. Nightbot's sharing the links in the chat every 7 minutes or so. The links are also below in the description to my Cash App or PayPal. And if you can't afford to donate, or you can't afford to donate and you're just a blood-sucking leech, cheap bastard, pardon my French, okay, it's the truth, you can, share this out. That's just as good as donating. Share this out on your Facebook, on your Twitter, tweet it out, LinkedIn. You can post stuff on LinkedIn now. You can post anything on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's becoming, or has become, more of a social network, a more professional social network, but it's become more of a social network where it's more than just about, finding jobs and, hiring managers finding people they need to hire, right? It's become a place where you can even share your content, which is great. So please, share this out. Also on your community walls on YouTube if you have one. And smash that like button. Subscribe also if you haven't subscribed. Bang the bell, select all notifications, and that way you won't miss anything. All right, let's get right to it. Welcome to Navigating the Modern World with Coach Eli, the Walking with Purpose live edition. Live from a different portion of the San Francisco Bay Trail, the SF Bay Trail. This is episode number 230. Homes are so beautiful out here, and the landscape is so beautiful. There's no place like home, folks. The topic today is going to be you need to learn to adapt to change. In this modern world, you need to learn to adapt to change. If you don't learn to adapt to change, the world's going to run you over. You need to learn to adapt to technology. Modern technology. Why? Because it's here and it's not going anywhere. And modern technology has practically replaced most aspects of life that a human used to do. Right? And there are still people to this day that have not adapted to, change, the change of the technological world, the internet, etc. And I'll share an example to start this off. My mother was one that was really leery about using the internet years ago. Was really leery about smartphones and texting and all that stuff. I really like what they've done here. I don't know if they just let this grow out or they planted some new plants, but this just looks so cool now with the plants here. It looks like you're walking through an actual hiking trail, in the woods almost. Now, obviously, this is very well landscaped. I mean, this is like a 5-star trail, folks. So you're not going to get this in the woods. I mean, look. This is what do they call, a hedge trimmer, right? I mean, look at how clean and pretty that looks. But still, I mean, this is gorgeous. This is some of the best landscaping I've ever seen, on a trail. Yes, San Francisco Bay Area people, even our hiking trails are pretty. Well, this is not really necessarily or technically a hiking trail. It's the San Francisco Bay Trail. It's more like a walking path. But there are parts of it that have, you know, dirt and parts of it that are actually paved. It just depends, what part of the trail you're on. By the time they're done with the SF Bay Trail, they're still building parts of it. They've been building it for well over a decade, or a little more than a decade now. They're gonna be about 500 miles worth of SF Bay Trails going around, connecting the entire Bay Area. Part of that is going to include, and already includes, walking across the Golden Gate Bridge, which is the gateway to the Pacific Ocean from the San Francisco Bay. Now, as I come over here, I'm going to have to stop and use the restroom. There was a spot I found the last time. I'm hoping I can find that spot again. I think I may have passed it. No, I haven't passed it yet. It's coming up, I believe. Yeah, it's coming up. I know exactly where it's at. I don't know where I'm going to go. So my mother was leery of even, getting a new smartphone when smartphones were already mainstream for 4 or 5 years. And my brother finally convinced her to upgrade the one. He helped her out. And now she's addicted to it. Now, she loves what she can do on that smartphone. Watch videos, surf the net. And her favorite thing is texting on a phone that you can actually see what you're texting and, has a touchpad with bigger buttons, right? Remember the old cell phones when texting first came out? Like the Nokias, they had a small screen and there wasn't a full keypad, so you had to use like the T9 text prediction, which is what they called it, right? It took you forever to send a text message. Now, you got a full keypad and a big phone doing it, right? To the point of where now my mother texts people all day, every day. She'd rather text them than talk with them on the phone. And she wasn't like that. She learned to adapt to the change. That's how people communicate nowadays. Now, don't get me wrong. I would prefer a phone call over texting, but I wouldn't just talk with anyone on the phone, because that takes a lot of time. I would prefer to talk with anyone by phone over texting that deserved my time and was worthy of my time. Like if it's a girlfriend or a friend or a family member or something, like if something is, if something needs to be discussed and it's not just BSing, right? I'd rather have a 20, 30-minute phone call than text back and forth all day, every day. It gets pretty annoying. And what happens, like if you don't get back to certain people when you're texting them right away, especially my mother, they start to worry. Are you okay? Are you okay? And then maybe you're taking a nap. Maybe you're out taking a walk, right? And if you don't get back to them, then they try to call you, right? And they don't realize that, hey, just because we have these smartphones that are always attached to our hips doesn't mean we're not sleeping or doing other things where we can't respond to you right away, right? Doesn't mean that we've deceased or anything just because we don't get back to you within 10 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour or so. Sometimes it might take longer than that. I just wanted to pass by these people here. That's a man with his son. Woman's in really good shape. She probably runs this trail every day. You can hear her breathing hard. Another man with this little teeny tiny, that looks like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That's a little tiny dog. That's like a, what is that, a Chihuahua or something? That's a tiny, like 10-pound dog. I'm wondering, where did it go last time? Oh, man, I'm just trying to figure out. There was a better spot. Give me a second here, folks. Do, 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 do. When you gotta go, you gotta go. When you gotta go, you gotta go. I will find my spot. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Folks, I'm going to go off the air. I'll be back in a few minutes. All right. We should be back live. We should be back live. All right, much better. So like I was saying, it took my mother a while to adapt to the change of the way cell phones were turning into mini computers. And before that, she really wasn't even on the internet. She was scared of the internet. She was scared that if she just got on a computer initially, or a tablet or a smartphone, that someone would hack her or steal her information. Well, it's always something to be leery about. And if you understand even just the simple basics of the internet, that's typically never going to happen, right? But what's happening now? My brother helped my mother get a tablet years ago. And now my mother tells me that instead of watching things on, regular TV, she launches the YouTube app from her tablet, and when she sits down at her table and watches and eats breakfast or eats lunch, she has her tablet there and watching YouTube videos of shows that she used to watch on regular TV. And then there are times, when we've gone over to see my mother, my brother, and I, and other family members, and she's cooking. She's got her tablet right there in the kitchen, right next to her. While she's cooking, she is consuming content. Where before, you had the TV on in the background, and you really couldn't pay attention to it. Now, when I get up in the morning and make coffee, I've got my phone there, I'm watching a YouTube video. So I get it, right? But I've been accustomed to this change for a while. But for my mother, it was quite shocking initially that she finally just let her guard down. And now, what I'm not shocked about is the fact that she's used to it. It's become a part of her lifestyle. It's made her life easier, right? She adapted to the change. My mother's 71 years old. She's a boomer. She's a baby boomer. She was born back in the days. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we've evolved technology-wise over the years, and where are we headed, and how is this going to affect us as people, and the way we communicate and do things, whether it involves dating relationships, families, businesses, right? Everything is affected by this. Your entire lives are affected by technology. Technology's taken over, and it's going to continue taking over. And if you don't learn to adapt to technology taking over, right, it's going to swallow you whole. It will affect you financially. It'll affect you mentally, emotionally. It'll affect you from having a relationship or a marriage or a family. You've got to learn to deal with what we got today, because it's here and it's not going anywhere. There's a right and a wrong way to deal with it, right? And most people nowadays are not dealing with it the right way, right? You got to balance it out too. You can't let it consume you, but you can't completely turn it off and get rid of it. You've got to balance it out. It's just a part of life. It's the way it is, right? So if we go back to, the early 1900s, where it was more about radio and radio talk shows, right? And then as you started getting into the 30s and 40s, TVs were coming out. It was about black and white TVs. And right around the 50s or so, I've read the story, there were some companies that were playing around with color TVs. So color TVs were actually the early developers of color TVs. They happened, I believe, in the late 40s and 50s. But color TV did not become mainstream until the late 70s, early 80s, right? And then, in the early to mid 80s, around 82, 83, 84, that's when stereo TV was created, where you had TVs with more than one speaker, TVs with more than one channel, right? So when you have one channel, that's one speaker, right? When you have two channels, that's typically two speakers, right? And what stereo is you have two different microphones picking up sound from two different positions in the same area, right? So for example, if I was going to come out here and record in stereo, which there would really be no point, I could put one microphone over here and one microphone over here, right? One on the left and one on the right side of the trail, right? It would pick up sounds from the left and the right. And if you have two speakers, typically your left channel would have, one of the mics, and then the right channel, the second speaker would have the other sound. It would give you, stereo was created to give you a feeling like you're actually right there. You're feeling the sound as if you were on location, right? So that was a pretty cool thing that happened in the 80s. And then, we all adapted. We had black and white TVs. We converted to color. It was expensive at first. So if you had one color TV in your home, you were fortunate. Initially, it was for the rich, and then, boom, it started becoming affordable and mainstream, right? And then, as we started to get into the 90s, color TVs became better. The initial color TVs, didn't look as good. As TVs got better, the picture was better, even on the old box TVs, before HD TVs came out, right? It was a 4:3 ratio. And the resolution was, I believe, 640 by 480, which was also dubbed as DVD resolution. That's why they made DVD resolution 640 by 480, I believe it was, because that was the resolution of 4:3 TVs, right? And they wanted you to be able to watch DVDs on your regular TV, right? We went through many eras. We had the videotape era, video cassette recorders, and then we had, cassettes for audio back then. So videotapes for video. We had cassettes for audio. Then what happened? Then the digital world came in and said, let's make this easier. Let's make this easier, cheaper, And let's start heading the world into a more environmentally friendly type of place. Why? Because anything that's digital is done on a computer with binary code, zeros and ones. Anything that involves that's analog is going to involve some type of material, like video tape. It's a tape, right? And a cassette is tape, right? And they were more expensive to produce. They were more prone to malfunction. How many times did your tapes get caught in your tape deck, right? And it screwed up your tape, right? How many times did your VHS or beta tapes? VHS was the standard, and Sony had their version of videotapes for cameras and stuff, or for recording, TV shows. It was called Beta by Sony. I mean, what a great name, Betamax. Nowadays, anything beta is subpar, like beta males, right? No disrespect intended. It's just the truth. So everything started going the digital route. And when everything started going the digital route, it was more about storing zeros and ones, information on hard drives that were small and compact and could store a lot of information. They could store video. They could store audio, right? You could also transfer those files through the internet anywhere, instantly. Instead of having to, back in the days, if you had family back east and you lived on the west, or in the west like I do, and you wanted to share a family video with them, you had to take that videotape and ship it out. And it would take a week to get there, right? Remember, we had even slow shipping back then, right? The digital world and the way we do things more efficiently nowadays, if you even have to ship anything nowadays, it can go clear across the country overnight if you want to spend the money. Or even economy-wise, it's no longer than 5 days. Typically 3 to 5 days, right? We've adapted to all of these changes, folks. We've adapted to all of these changes. And if you're one that hasn't adapted to all these changes and you still do things the old school way, I'm telling you, you're going to get barreled over. We live in a different world nowadays. I'm coming to the end. Wow, I walked this pretty fast. It must be because I'm getting my step back. How long have I been on for? 53 minutes. I took a little break, so probably about 51 minutes. God, it seems like time is flying. Let me stay here for a second. Somebody's coming. It's an old lady back there walking slowly. They get startled when somebody just pops out of nowhere, especially with a camera and a selfie stick, right? Yeah, if I was going to live in this area and I could afford one of these homes, this is probably the side I would live on, right? By the side here, overlooking the water. And then having the beginning of the SF Bay Trail here, and I would walk it every day. Now, I would still walk other trails, but as a last resort, if I couldn't get to any other trail on any given day, I'd have one right in my backyard. That's beautiful. That's what these people have that live here. Bunch of bugs here. Hey, Lewis Fuller, how you doing? Can you see me okay, Lewis, and hear me clearly? All right, let's start heading back. 'Cause if I feel this good, I may do an in-studio stream tonight. Who knows? Maybe I'll do a dating story stream. Dating advice for men and women, volume 10. Maybe later tonight. Yes, I can see you. I hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much, Lewis. How's your day going, brother? Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing me out the other day. I saw your community post and I made a comment and I gave you a like, bro. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, man. Lewis, would you want to live here? This is a different part of the SF Bay Trail. Isn't this beautiful, Lewis? Oh, I was going to get that bird, but it took off. I was going to zoom in. Lots of ducks in the water, too. You're very welcome, says Lewis. It's going great. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you. Yes, it looks great, beautiful. Lewis, living out here will cost you both of your arms and your legs, brother. You know that. And probably my arms and legs, too, at the same time, Lewis. 2 arms and 2 legs will still not buy you a house out here in this area, bro. Oh, is that duck back? Is that a duck? No, that's a bird. I don't know if that's an egret or not. Let's see. Let's zoom in. It's beautiful, huh, Lewis? That's as far as I can zoom in. I think it's in digital zoom. Where'd it go? Where'd you go, buddy? Oh, well, I lost it. Let me zoom out. It's really hard to pinch zoom with these gloves on, even though they're touch gloves. All right, so let's continue here. So yeah, we've now reached, the digital era. Well, computers were already, built, but they were big and clunky, right? And then the invention of the microprocessor changed everything. Tiny little processor we have in our phones, laptops, and desktops today that is more powerful than the bigger, huger processors that those big supercomputers used to have back in the 50s and 60s, right? And it was, like the 80s when, the personal computer started coming out. Apple created the Apple IIe and Apple IIc. I remember going to grammar school. I've gone to private school my entire life. And we had the Apple IIe's and Apple IIc's. The C was the color version. And back in those days, you had to, use code to execute programs. Right? And what happened in the late 80s, early 90s that made all the difference? Bill Gates and Microsoft created Windows, a guide user interface to the point of where you wouldn't have to execute programs on a computer by typing out the string of code that most of us didn't know. All you had to do was double click on an icon or a menu and it pops right open, right? That changed everything. Adapting to change, right? Okay? We adapted to change. That changed everything. If you folks remember, you know, I remember as far back as Windows 3.1 or even 3.0, and I believe there was 1.0 and 2.0 before that, but people had really not adapted to the PC, the personal computer back then, because they were still figuring out the bugs. But by the time Windows 3.1 came out, that changed everything. That changed everything and the way that we do things today. Bill Gates revolutionized how to use a computer with the guide user interface called Windows. So we wouldn't have to type out lines of code that we didn't know to execute programs, right? C:\\/ program files, x86 /, right? You'd have to type that shit out. Nobody knew that. Now, I'm a smart dude and I've grown up with computers and I understand how the language is called DOS, right? I understand how DOS works, right? But the majority of people are like, whoa, how do you run this thing? We have to learn code to use this thing. It's not simplified enough for us to use it yet. So Bill Gates did what Apple should have done initially, and he built Windows. And basically took the PC market where Apple should have gone. The PC market still dominates to this day. All because of what Bill Gates did. He saw a problem, he found a solution. Right? He saw a problem and he found a solution. And changed the world. And we all adapted to it. Right? To this day, I still use Windows. Even though we have smartphones, a lot of things, especially if you're a content creator, are much easier to do on the laptop or desktop. There's Windows 10 and now Windows 11. I haven't upgraded yet. I'm not going to upgrade for a little while until all the bugs are fixed, because Windows 10 is just it does everything I need it to do. But to this day, Microsoft and Windows still dominates. Now, don't get me wrong. Apple has a good share of the market, but it's still nowhere near the share of the PC market. Plus, Apple likes to more so control their products and third-party applications, and the PC world is more open source. It has a lot more flexibility. Same thing when it comes to your smartphones nowadays. You know, the iPhones are more controlled. The Androids, you know, which Android was created by Google, they go on many different phones, not just, you know, Google phones. They go on Samsungs and other phones too, right? But it's more of an open source type of operating system, mobile operating system, right? Now, I do hear that Apple is going to be possibly changing things to the point of where they're going to be forced, if some law passes, to allow third-party applications to be installed on the iPhone. If you want to install third-party apps on the iPhone now, you have to do what's called jailbreaking, and you risk messing up the phone doing that, and you void the warranty. I've never, you know, done any jailbreaking on any iPhone I've had. And quite frankly, every app that I've needed to use has been on the, you know, has been in the App Store, so not a big deal. So we've adapted to all of these changes, right? And nowadays, if we come to the present world now, right? We come to present day. And there's been more change over the last, 10 to 15 years, right? Smartphones, the first smartphone was released in 2007 by Apple, right? And then after that, you go 4 or 5 years after that, you started getting 3G internet access on the cell tower. You started getting high-speed internet access on the cell towers to the point of where you could surf the net, you could launch applications, you can check your email, you can text message, right? You can stream video from YouTube. That changed everything, right? We adapted to the change, right? And as we go into the current, time now, many people are complaining about many of the changes on the internet, right? Many people are complaining about these changes that they've, tried to adapt to, right? A lot of people are like, oh, it's not the way it used to be. The dating world sucks nowadays. There's too much competition in business, right? There's lots of phonies out there trying to sell you something. There have always been phonies, but not because of the internet. It's a greater opportunity for phonies, to pull their scams, right? But it's also a greater opportunity for good people to run a business too, right? All depends how you want to look at it, right? All depends if you want to keep it positive and adapt to the changes, understand the changes and adapt to them, right? Give me a second here, folks. That's just beautiful. A lot of people nowadays, they complain about the online dating world, right? Both men and women do, right? But what you don't realize is that dating is a lot better and easier than it's ever been. You might come back to me and say, well, Eli, I can't get any matches. I can't, get any dates or whatever. Well, how are you showing up? Let's get rid of the online world temporarily for a minute. If you look like crap and act like crap in the real world outside of the internet, how do you think the internet's going to treat you? The internet's only going to expose more of who you are, right? Or exactly who you are, right? I keep going back to a famous entrepreneur that's ridden the wave of the internet over the decades, since the internet came out over 30 years ago. Gary Vaynerchuk. He says the internet hasn't changed us, it's exposed us. The internet hasn't changed us, it's exposed us, right? So think about it this way. If you're struggling with online dating apps, give me a second, there's some people stopped over here. A lady and her young kid. All right. So if you're struggling in the online dating world nowadays, if the online dating world or the online world didn't exist, you would still be struggling in the same exact ways in the real world, right? The digital world is just an easy way to represent who you really are. It's also real easy for people to misrepresent themselves because, you can doctor things up. You can use filters and all that stuff, yada, 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 right? But here's the thing, in the online dating world, if you do all that to get the attention of somebody, right? If you're, let's say, a woman that uses all these filters and, uses all these fancy poses to hide weight and to hide wrinkles and to hide all your flaws and imperfections, do you not think that a man's not going to see all that when he meets you? And don't you want that man to still be interested when he meets you? So why would you try to hide things, right? Digital world is no different than the real world. Only difference is how you represent yourself, right? And Have you properly adapted to this change in the way we live life in the digital world nowadays? Right? Let me tell you, you know, I've had some good relationships in my life. Yep, I've never been married and I have no kids. It just hasn't been the. All right, I should be back. I got cut off. Sorry about that, folks. I got cut off. So yeah, like I said a second ago before I got cut off, I met lots of great women on dating sites and dating apps. Before the dating apps came out, the dating sites were there since the internet came out, even back in the days of dial-up, which I forgot to mention. That's another thing we adapted to, right? Another change we adapted to. We went from dial-up internet to high-speed cable internet and DSL, digital subscriber line, and now fiber, right? As our needs for more and more bandwidth, have changed, we adapted to that, right? Primarily because of video. Video is the most bandwidth intense thing to do on the internet, right? Especially if you're a live streamer or you upload YouTube content. The faster you're upstream and downstream, but for upstream purposes, the faster your upstream, your upload speed, the quicker you can upload to YouTube, or the higher quality you can maintain a good live streaming connection at. That's why I now have fiber, 1,000 up, 1,000 down, and now AT&T has, 2,000 up and down and 5,000 up and down. So I have 1 gigabit, which is super fast. I don't need any more than that. $80 a month. But if you want to spend $110 a month, you can get 2 gigabit now, up and down. Or if you want to spend $180 a month, you can get 5 gigabit up and down. And if I was going to do 5 gigabit, I'd have to change my hardware, my routers, everything, because I'm set up for 1 gigabit. But we adapted to the change, right? We went from dial-up and clogging up our phone lines and getting second phone lines that cost a lot of money back then to have internet. Now, we've had always-on high-speed connections since they started first coming out like in the mid to late 90s. But by the time the 2000s came around, most of everyone had cable internet or access to DSL. That changed everything, right? But like I was saying with these, dating sites, even back in the early days of the internet, on dating sites before smartphones and dating apps came out, what did that do? It opened up a broader range of men and women to meet, not just in your local area, but within a certain radius. The majority of women I've dated have lived anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half away from me. I would have never met these good women. They were good during the time. I'm sure they're still good nowadays. We just didn't work out, right? No big deal, right? I would have never met these good women had it not been for the internet and online dating sites, even before dating apps came out. So a lot of you folks are complaining about dating apps and the dating world and this and that as a horrible way to meet people, right? And I'm not saying that, there isn't any degree of challenge using dating sites or dating apps, or there wasn't. There was always a degree, right? It used to be a little easier because we'd have to log into a computer to check our messages and our email. Now we get things instantaneously on our phones through these apps. And the difference nowadays is these dating apps coming to our phones have made it so overwhelming that it's hard to keep one person's attention long enough, to focus on someone long enough, to get to know them well enough to make something happen. Both men and women but more so women because of the thirsty beta males, like I always say. Both men and women have lots of options. Women have a lot more, and it becomes overwhelming. And it doesn't have to become overwhelming if you adapt to the change properly and use it for what you want to use it for. For example, you want to find a good guy. So you're going to put a profile out there, and you can get lots of messages. And if you're a guy, you might get lots of messages if you have good pictures and a good profile. But you got to make a decision. You got to go through all your options and make a decision on who's my top choice, who's not only the cutest, but has the best personality, and focus on them. And don't string along the rest of the people that you connected with, right? It amazes me, what people do nowadays. People will, people can quickly find a match online, right? And start to focus on that one person, but they still leave their options open. They still, communicate with the other people they're connected with and lead them to believe that there's a chance. You see, that's where I feel, things should change a little bit, because, it's not cool to string people along and make them your backup plan just in case your original plan doesn't work. You wouldn't want somebody doing that to you, so why do that to other people, right? Got a lot of people coming. Like this portion of the trail is pretty high traffic. Give me a second here. Jesus. All right. So that's another thing we adapted to. We adapted from using dating sites on our laptops and desktops before smartphones came out to now using our smartphones. And we don't even call them dating sites anymore. We call them dating apps, right? We've adapted to it, but most of us act like we don't like it, right? That's because, in my opinion, I don't feel we've properly adapted to it. We've been using it for different things other than what it was intended to be used for, right? A lot of people use the smartphones and dating apps now for attention and validation, more so done by women, but some men do it too. I'm not going to lie. There are men that get off on how many matches they can get. And I guess to a certain extent, the more matches someone gets, it's going to boost anyone's ego, but it's all about how you handle it in the real world. And do you let it get to you to the point of where it affects you from actually focusing on one person to create a great relationship with? People, when they hit these trails, they come in large groups and they just sprawl across the whole trail instead of staying on one side. And when they come across people coming on the other side, they don't move. So you got to move way off to the grass portion to pass them, right? And I think what's going on in the modern world is we're so overly consumed with information, and we're so overwhelmed with so many things due to these smartphones and the internet in general and all that, and so much more content, right? That we just lose our minds. We veg out. We come out on a trail like this, and it's like we just turn off our brain, right? We don't even want to think about anything. We're like too overwhelmed and exhausted to think, right? I've seen this modern world, over the last, 10 to 15 years since smartphones have been out since '07. And I'll say more so like 2012, 2011, 2012 was when I think 3G came out. So I'd say over the last 10 years since 3G access came out, we had high-speed internet on these phones, right? Everything has changed. And people have become vegetables to the point of where, when now these people are so consumed by their phones and computers, whether it be at work or home, right, that when they actually go out and do something, they're like burnt out. They've got no gas left in the tank, right? Now, here's the thing. I love technology just like all of them. I'm a technology guru. I know everything there is to know about computers, laptops, desktops, smartphones. I can repair electronics. I can repair hardware on a computer. I know about software. I know how to fix viruses and prevent viruses. I know about firewalls and Ethernet cards and Wi-Fi cards and solid-state hard drives and memory and processors and all that. I know all that, right? And I love it just as much as anyone loves it, right? But I've properly adapted to it. And I've always adapted to it. Why? Because I enjoy the real world. And the internet was something created to allow you to make the real world a little bit easier to live and navigate through. But the internet was not created to replace your real world. And that's part of the issues we have nowadays. A lot of people have allowed the internet and smartphones especially to replace the real world. A couple other things, that we've adapted to. Women have adapted to some crazy things, and so have men. Again, going back to my single days, there were some phone lines I used to call, and some of them are still around to this day. And, I called them once or twice in between my last relationship and this one, right? And nowadays, you go on the site, you go on a phone line site like that, where you have men and women on each side. You record a greeting, and then you scroll through the greetings of people that are live on the phone line, and you can send them a message or request a live connection, right? And 90% plus of the women that are on these lines right now, they have profiles saying, I'm a hot, sexy, 38 triple D, blah, 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 right? And I'm seeking a generous man who is financially stable. And when they say generous man, they don't mean a nice guy. They mean a generous man that's going to pay for play. They call it, well, some of them will say, I'm looking for pay for play. I'm looking for a mutually beneficial hookup, right? And this is literally like 90% of the women that call these lines now. As of the last time I called, which was several months before I started dating this woman I'm with, right? This is what they're looking for. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Give me just a second here, folks. This is what this world has adapted to. The point I was trying to make is, I don't think it's right for men or women to solicit their bodies for money. It's against the law too, right? But more so women do it than men, because most men would not be able to get even unattractive women to pay to sleep with them nowadays. But women, they've got that huge beta male market. Like 97% of men on this planet are either beta or somewhat submissive, right? Or somewhat more submissive than masculine, right? Than dominant, right? So these women have a huge market of men that are making good money but have no spine, and are so desperate for a woman, and they lack self-confidence, that these women will use their looks. They'll go on phone lines like these and say, I'm a 36 triple D. Like I said a second ago, got long brown hair, and they've got the sexy voice, right? And it's all one big joke. It's one big act, right? And even some of these women nowadays, the last time I was on this line, several months before I met this woman I'm with today, right? Some of them won't even meet. Some of them will say, I'm looking for a sugar daddy, an online sugar daddy. I accept only Cash App. You Cash App me $100. I'll send you some pictures, and we'll do some video chats occasionally. These women nowadays don't even want to meet you in person and sleep with you. They just want to do it all digitally, right? So we've adapted to that too, right? And that's a problem, right? To me, that's a problem, because here's the thing. Even people that are looking for a relationship, a lot of times nowadays, people will go on these dating sites, and the man and the woman will meet, and then they start off by having a phone relationship or video chat relationship, right? Before they even meet. I mean, how fulfilling is that? Part of adapting to the changes of the modern digital world, right? Of modern technology, is using the technology to make your current life just a little bit easier, but not to replace it, right? Nothing will ever replace a warm, feminine body for me, like my ladies, and nothing would ever replace a warm, masculine body like me for her. The digital world will not replace that, right? It's just weird how some people have, adapted to the world we live in nowadays, or not adapted to it, I mean, pardon my French here. I'm a little tired, and it's been it's been a little chilly on this walk. Ooh, are those geese? Hey, buddies. How you doing? Boom! That's a husband over there and the wife over there, I believe. They're on a date. Honey, we're going to go to the beach. We're going to hang out and chill. Well, dude, why don't you go put your arm around your wife, or put your neck or beak around your wife? Now he's looking at me. Mind your own business. Now the wife stands up. Yeah, it's all good. We are at almost an hour and a half. 1 hour and 29 minutes. We had one cutoff and one planned cutoff when I used the restroom. So we're probably at about an hour 27, hour 28. Get your questions, comments, and concerns in the chat post. We'll be going off the air in about 15 to 20 minutes. That's when I'm back at my car. I hope to have some energy to do some dating stories tonight. Dating advice for men and women. Sorry, dating advice for men and women, Volume 10. I'm hoping to have the energy to do it tonight. If not, I'll take just one more night off, get a little more rest, and come back this week with a bang with tons of content. Not just these mobile live streams. I mean, these mobile live streams and the walks are my favorite, but you know, I have a bunch of other content planned that I need to record. I want to record. And that's the type of content that's going to allow this channel to become more searchable. So that way people can find out more about these live streams, come here and participate and ask questions and get the answers that are going to change their life or lives. The answers that are going to turn your lives around for the better. I mean, there are some clouds in the sky that are blocking the sun, because if those clouds weren't blocking that sun would be right in my eyes. It would be bright as hell. But it's almost kind of like a shield. At the same time, those clouds are blocking the sun from hitting me and bringing some additional warmth. The world, folks, is going to continue changing. Technology is going to keep changing. Technology has replaced many jobs. And a lot of people are not happy about that. A lot of people have lost their jobs that were replaced by technology. You know, such as machines that mass produce products that used to be made by men and women by hand, right? And before women were liberated by men, right? Okay? So now we have machines that mass produce products. It takes one man or woman to load the machine and keep an eye on the machine to make sure it doesn't get jammed. And when it does get jammed, they can unjam it, right? Back before that, to make the same amount of product, you were looking at least 4 to 6 or even 8 people that you had to pay full-time hours to, right? Now you get a machine and you have one person, right? You cut out, 6, 7 jobs, right? What does that do? Technically, it should lower the price, right? That's why a lot of things are cheaper nowadays. Even though inflation's gone up, folks, a lot of products are still a lot cheaper than they would have been had it not been for machinery, technological advancements, and mass production, right? A lot of people don't realize that. See, that's why, I haven't really complained that much about inflation or $5 a gallon gas at this point, because here's the thing. We've advanced so much technologically that most things that we have nowadays, like I said, if it wasn't for technological advances to mass produce them quicker, they would have cost more money, right? Now in the future, there's going to be more technological advancements, and the world's going to become more dependent on the internet. And what I feel is coming, I'm not really too fond of, because I've talked about this before. I'll say it again. There was Web 1.0, which was the web version, before social media. Then Web 2.0 was the social media era, right? And video and audio and all that stuff, immersive video and audio, like on YouTube and other platforms. Now I'm hearing Web 3.0, which is why Mark Zuckerberg changed the parent company of Facebook's name from Facebook to Meta, right? He's been talking about, a lot of people are talking about virtual reality. VR is going to come into the picture, right? And that's going to be the next latest, greatest thing. And I'm not really fond of it because what are we going to do? Further keep people into the state they're in of already being in a virtual reality type of world, having people continue to have relationships that are phone relationships and having phone intimacy instead of getting together and being intimate in reality. What is virtual reality going to do? Make a big, huge problem even bigger? And these tech giants are just looking for the next latest and greatest thing that's going to get everyone to open up their pocketbooks and make them billions, if not trillions of dollars, right? But if you folks withdraw and understand that, you know, the next stage of the internet, in my opinion, virtual reality is stupid, right? And you don't feed into it or support it financially, right? Or support it by watching ads, right? Then they're not going to be able to move forward with it. I honestly don't think that Web 3.0 should go the route of virtual reality. I think it's already destroying humanity in the way it used to be and was meant to be. More natural in-person connections than fake digital connections that never lead to anything and just waste people's times and hurt their emotions. Now, there are people that have never met in person but have been dating through the internet and having phone sex and all that kind of stuff for years, but they've never met in person, and they're satisfied with that? Really? Nothing will ever replace the real thing, right? And that's another reason why we've adapted to a world that is more of a hookup culture, especially for our younger generations, like the millennials, the post-millennials, the Gen Zers, the I generation, and the Alpha generation, which is 10 and under. They're too young. But the Gen Zers and the millennials, the Gen Y people, created this crazy hookup culture. Because they would rather live in a more virtual reality type of world most of the time, right? Instead of, you know, commit to something special and amazing. It's the fear of commitment also, like I've been talking about the past few days in my walks. Lots of geese here. There are always geese here. I heard the big one take a deep breath. I think I freaked it out. Most of them are pretty cool. They know I'm just walking by. Yeah, I know. We're in your environment. This is your environment. I'm doing a little trailblazing right now. I wanted to go and see the geese. That's the problem nowadays. You know, people are having more online digital relationships than real relationships, but they still crave sex and intimacy, right? So what people will do is go on apps like Tinder, or even apps that are supposed to be primarily for dating, like Bumble or Hinge, and they'll look for hookups. Not because they're not open to a relationship, or don't want a relationship, but which is what I'm trying to say. They're just not open to one, or they feel they're not ready for one, or they're not ready to give up their immersive digital lifestyle, right? People fear commitment because part of committing yourself to someone means that you have to give up certain aspects of your life. And that also includes, being a part of dating sites and dating apps and flirting around with people and, all that kind of stuff. It's like people just don't want to give up anything today. And unless you give something up, you're never going to get anything that you really want. Getting what you want in life, whether it involves, business, whether it involves business or the personal aspect, dating and stuff like that, you gotta give something up. Part of dating somebody and being loyal and faithful to them is giving up the freedom to be with other people. It's called a commitment. Nowadays, people don't want to give it up, right? And that's another thing we've adapted to, that this, world of technology has taken us to. It's adapted us to a culture where we feel like if we commit to something, we have to give up a lot. Give up the internet and dating apps and lots of fake attention and validation and all that, right? At what point and at what age do these young people finally say, I've had enough of this, and I want to meet a good person and I want to have a family and someone to grow old with? At what point? At what point do we give this up? Because back in the days of traditionalism, before all this technology came out and everything, that's what life was all about. It was about meeting someone, getting married, having a family, right? And living happily ever after, right? Nowadays, that's another thing we've had to adapt to in the digital world, is realizing that happily ever after isn't what it used to be. And it's different. And most people nowadays don't even believe in happily ever after anymore. Most people don't even know about it because our youth that's being raised now, I think the millennials understand it because, the millennials, were the generation after my generation, Gen X. But I think the Gen Zers and the Alpha generation, those generations there, are not going to really understand how the world used to be. They're seeing how the world is right now, and they're accepting the world has always been this way. And the truth of the matter is, no, it hasn't. It has not. We are at 104, so that's about an hour and 4. All right, we should be back live. It got cut off. Like I was saying, folks, if you're here live or watching on the replay, please smash the thumbs up. Please like this stream. Share it out. Share it on your community tabs if you have one, on your YouTube channel. Share it out on Facebook, on your personal pages and group pages, or business pages if you're allowed to do so. Share it out on LinkedIn. Share it out on Twitter. Tweet it out. Or any other social media site that you're a part of. I would greatly appreciate that. I really want to help as many people as possible start to get some more uplifting content in their life. So that way I can help as many people as possible remove all drama from their lives. And that way they can truly achieve happiness. And also please subscribe, bang the bell, select the notifications, so that way you won't miss anything. In order to chat in my live stream chats, whether it be on these mobile walks or through the studio or from the studio, you need to be subscribed for a minimum of 24 hours. And also follow my guidelines. YouTube now will show you up to 3 guidelines if you set it up on the back end for people that are chatting. When you first enter someone's chat and they have that activated with your own personal guidelines, this is on top of YouTube's guidelines. People can see what you want and don't want. And they can agree to it or not. If they don't agree to it and they come in, they're going to get removed and banned, all right? All right, folks. Get your questions, comments, and concerns in the chat. I'm going to be going off the air in just a couple of minutes. I'm almost back at the parking lot. I actually walked this pretty fast today. I'm going to come out this way today. Gosh, pretty proud of myself at 48, especially with what I've been through the past few years. Wow. Typically, doing this trail lately has taken me a little over 2 hours. I did it in way under 2 hours today. And what that's telling me is that I'm getting my step back. After dealing with all this sciatica and constipation and herniated discs and all that, shit happens, folks, even if you take care of yourself as best as possible. For me, it was just eating the wrong food. This was a lesson learned. I will never eat certain foods ever again that are going to constipate me and clog me up that bad for so long, right? And that's why I share these stories, folks, because I don't want you folks to make the same mistakes I did that I know will set you back. I fought through it, folks, and I've still been doing content and walking even throughout all this time, but it hasn't been easy, I'll tell you. But I definitely feel better today. So, all right, I'm back on my car. I'm going to wrap this up, folks. I want to thank you all for being here. Maybe I may just come back and do a stream from the studio tonight. Not quite sure. Right now, I feel relaxed, but I am a little tired and hungry. And it all depends on how I feel after I eat. If I had to guess right now, probably not, but you never know. If not, this coming week, we're going to hit it hard with content from the studio, live streams from the studio, mobile walks, and some other pre-recorded videos. We're going to hit it hard, so stick around. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have yourselves a great night, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Take care, and as always, be good to each other.